yeah? It is amazing to be here. I fucking love this conference. It's a really nice conference to learn about technical stuff. So I really appreciate being here. I wasn't meant to be here. It was a surprise to me, and I'm sure it's a surprise to you as well. So I'm really glad to be here. So my name is Gwen Diagram. You can tweet me at Gwen Diagram, and I'm the lead tester at Monzo, but I was previously at Sky. You'll hear a bit more about that. So about me. So I live in Leeds in the UK. I am one of the co-organisers of the Leeds Testing Atelier, which is a one-day free punk rock conference with lots of shouting because I'm involved. And I really fucking love pigeons. Pigeons make me very happy. And I work at Monzo, as I said. So Monzo is one of the brand new challenge, well, not brand new, it's been around for about 4 years. It's one of the challenger banks in the UK, which is a pretty exciting field. And I've been there for about 3 months. And I've been doing some pretty cool stuff. It's pretty exciting, like, because it's brand new architecture, pretty new kind of field, but I'm not talking about that. We won't be talking about that today. So instead, this is a story of how I brought awareness of security to the software teams at Sky. Sky is a telecommunications company, and it's in the UK and a little bit of Europe as well. So before I ran these security workshops, I ran a few other workshops and I failed. But failing is totally okay, you know, think of it as happy accidents. Because I learned some really cool stuff along the way to stop me from failing for next time. So at the time, I'd recently been promoted to the first principal test engineer. So what exactly does a principal test engineer do? Well, to be honest, I had exactly the same question because I was the first principal test engineer at Sky. And I was the principal test engineer for just one really large part of the business. The rest of the business, it wasn't mine to worry about. I was told to ignore it. You know, they've got their own stuff to deal with. So I had a hell of a lot of freedom because no one knew what I was meant to do. And I found out very, very early on in this role that my role was not about testing at all. My role was about quality. And I wasn't in a tribe, so no one had to do a single thing that I suggested. People were absolutely free to ignore me. So if I wanted to make a difference, I had to make it pretty fucking interesting. So I tried a few different things. First off, I ran some exploratory testing workshops, and they were pretty successful because I worked with one of the test managers and we set them up for her team, specifically for her team. And we set them up at a specific time, and she made sure that people came. She herded everyone along to them. These workshops, they had varying levels of interest. But some of these workshops ended up being cancelled due to releases, which is a massive anti-pattern in itself. But it was an anti-pattern that ran really, really deep. With a form of delivery that we were doing, cancellations were going to be really common, which isn't how I want to run a set of workshops, not knowing if I'm actually going to run the workshop. For one thing, people should actually choose to come to the workshop, not be forced, not be herded. So I tried a few other things. I was really lucky. I was asked to organise one of the all-hands, so all of the department's all-hands, which I was really excited about, because that meant that I could invite every single one of the people there to my workshops. And I was like, yes, this is going to be amazing. Because there was so much that we could improve. So I set this theme for the all hands as Kaizen. And I ran a bunch of drop-in Kaizen workshops, and I printed out little flyers coming along to the workshop. I gave people stickers and all this stuff like that. But the workshops, they generally looked like this. There was fucking no one there. And I had set up 8 of these workshops in a week. So 2 of them a day, which meant that I wrote 8 workshops, and then I would just sit there and I would wait for people to turn up. And most of the time, only one person turned up. The same person. So I really liked Alan. Alan was a bit of a dude. But I needed more than Alan for continuous improvement. Us two weren't going to change the world by ourselves. So that was a total failure, and one that really hurt, because sitting there by yourself for a week, like twice a day, was just so depressing. But by doing that, I learned a lot about what not to do when you're running a workshop. So I thought, what can I actually do to make a difference in quality and happiness here? Security wasn't really spoken about at the time, barely spoken about. So what we had is we had 4 security experts, and they sat in a glass box in another building. And they'd hired all of them from Lithuania, which was cool, because I used to work with Lithuanians and they are fucking smart and awesome. But they mostly spoke Lithuanian in their glass box, which meant that there was a communication breakdown. So they might have been thriving in their glass box, but security on the outside was a complete desert. And we did penetration tests, but the teams didn't actually get involved in these whatsoever. We did them every 6 months, and the Scrum Master organised them, and we didn't really see the results, except for at the end there was a big risk spreadsheet that no one actually cared about. So maybe security was actually something that people would like to learn, because it seems like no one really knew what it was. But I'm a tester. I am really not a security expert. Although I had been to a workshop or two about security at conferences just like this. So one of my mates, Dan Billing, he'd run a workshop on security, and it was all open source material. Introducing Juice Shop. Who here has used Juice Shop before? Amazing, there's a couple of you. Well, you're going to know how awesome it is already, but I'm going to tell you again anyway, because it is fucking awesome. So, Juice Shop is free, and it's open source. It's really, really easy to install, so you can use Docker, you can install it using Node and from source, and you can use it on Heroku as well. So it's really easy. And if you've got security issues at work where you can't install other things, Heroku's easy, so that's cool. And it's self-contained, so what you destroy in there can't affect other things on your machine. And it's self-healing, which makes me really excited. And it's got gamification as well, which is really awesome, because that's how you get people excited. We all like games, we all like badges. So it seemed like a really fun, easy thing for us to learn. But how would I actually know if people were interested? I'd already failed at being able to tell if people were interested in things. How would I figure out this time? So for this, I decided to involve all of Sky leads instead of my little piece of the company for many different reasons. And I learnt to gauge interest first. So consider how people communicate when you're organising something like this, and use that method. So I used to put on gigs, and you put out flyers. I'm not organising gigs when I'm running a workshop at work. No one fucking uses flyers in a technology company. That was a stupid idea. So I advertise my ideas on Slack, because everyone uses Slack, and most people love Slack. I love Slack. And the party wizard emoji is a really good emoji. Everyone loves the party wizard, and if you don't, I'm sorry, but party wizard is excellent. And so I said emoji with the party wizard if you're interested in coming. And this one, it was really popular. I had over 40 emoji responses on Slack from all of Leeds. So I set up 2 workshops to start with, and I ordered in stickers because everyone loves stickers. And I got some food in, and we held a 4-hour workshop. So my department, we didn't have money for food, we didn't have money for anything. We were getting rid of some people at the time, like moving them into different departments, so there was no way I could ask for money for food. So I exchanged training the other department for food. Because no matter how good your workshop is, people will not come to your workshop if there is no food. And that is very important to remember, get in food. But I still wasn't a security expert. In fact, I really felt like I didn't know barely anything at all. But I did know where to find stuff out. From going to conferences just like this one, that's meant to be a mirror, not just a white thing, so just imagine seeing yourself in there. And the workshops were a total success this time. People were working on Juice Shop outside of work, and they were sharing the solutions with each other because I'd set up Slack channels for each different workshop. And so they got to different parts, like in the application, and they were like, I figured out how to solve this, like, look. And then they'd show each other. It was amazing. And one person even took it back to run it within their tribe because they were like, everyone needs to know about this. And I had other principals who were like, oh, can you come and run it within my tribe? And I was like, no. Because this wasn't just about security. I thought that we could build a community. So I felt like a lot of the reason why we didn't have quality software, well, we didn't have the height of quality software that we wanted, was because people weren't in a community and they weren't happy and engaged. And happy, engaged people build quality software. With this being a success, I thought that we could take it further, a lot further. So I booted up a security guild, and I asked for other organisers to help. So don't try and run a community alone, because there's only one of you, and who knows what's going to happen. It's a single point of failure, and you don't know everything. I definitely do not know anything about security. There's probably other people that do know a lot more. In my case, we had 2 security experts that were really, really quiet, but they were like, this is amazing, we really want to help. And so I could learn how to do security from them. I made this as open as possible as well. Organisers can come from absolutely anywhere. In this case, we had a really recent graduate, and he ended up leading the technical space, and he actually ran a few workshops as well, which was really cool, because he'd never done anything like that before. So, how to set up an organising team for success. Sort out regular catch-ups and make sure you meet them. Set objectives to take away as well and fish out the work, like say, okay, you're going to do this. We'll see you in 2 weeks and like can't wait to see it done. Encourage everyone to learn. So not everyone needs to know about it, but you can all learn about it. Praise for jobs well done. Tell them that they fucking smashed it. And as an organising team, we set some objectives not only for us, but for the guild as well. So we wanted attendees to get a basic learning of web security. We wanted attendees to be able to learn the ability to manually explore an application for any vulnerabilities. And we wanted attendees to use tool-assisted testing techniques to explore an application for security vulnerabilities. And to be able to read OWASP logs to scan for vulnerabilities, to be able to filter the logs, and then integrate OWASP into their CI pipelines. That was my most important thing because I'm lazy as hell, and I'm not going to mess around with OWASP all the time when I can automate that. Yeah, so. And then it was time for us to actually learn how to teach this because none of us had done this before. So I started researching and tweeting about it. And the Twitterverse told me about this really cool game that you can run. When you talk about security on Twitter, people get excited because the security experts have wanted people to talk about security forever. So they're like, I've got all this information. It's like someone giving off all their hay bales, like, please take my information, please. So that was quite cool. And someone helped me out with a copy as well. So I actually ended up catching a bus to the middle of nowhere to meet a man at a service station to get a copy of this game, Elevation of Privilege. And it ended up, after we'd done this, news of our guild started to really spread. So in the UK, Sky has 3 different tech hubs. We've got Livingston, London, and Leeds. And so they had security experts there. And they started to hear about what we were doing. And so they actually came to Leeds. They caught a train to Leeds to see what we were doing so they could take it back to their teams as well. So how to actually teach security and have people actually interested in what you're teaching. Set goals. For everything, just set goals. And read the goal if you haven't, because Eli Goldratt is like a god. And use a common application as well. So because I had people from all over the business coming to these workshops, I couldn't use what they were using because it wouldn't work. So Juice Shop was really useful to use as a practice application. Teach Stride. So as testers, we really love mnemonics and they can really help other people as well. So share that knowledge. So talk about spoofing, tampering, repudiation. Repudiation is my favorite. That's like going onto a system and changing the logs so no one will know that you're there. It's rewriting history. How cool is that? Like, that makes you want to be a hacker just so you can rewrite history. Information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privilege itself. And threat model. So threat model is really interesting. I didn't know how to do it, but the security experts helped us. So that's looking at the application and seeing where you can find threats, basically. And use data flow models as well to identify where to actually test. And use personas. So you can look at a certain kind of person and say, okay, cool, this person would attack the application like this, and get into that mindset. And play games as well. So I used elevation of privilege. There's other security games as well that you can use. And get technical, use tools, because if you want developers to learn about security, they're not going to sit there drawing diagrams all day and stuff like that. They want to use a tool and they want to start coding. And there are some really cool tools in security. And as well, let the guild members have a say in what they want to do next. So every one of the workshops, I didn't say like, oh, this is me, Paul, and whoever running this. I was like, you are running this. You are making the decisions on where we're going to go. I've set this. Are you happy to go on to this next? Otherwise, like, what do you want to do? And that kept everyone really engaged. And they did want to play Juice Shop a lot, but that's cool. Security should not be something that we think of last, and we shouldn't work on it last. We shouldn't have penetration testers, like looking at things last. We should be able to look at it early. With threat modeling, security can be considered when you're actually first architecting systems. So you can teach, if you've got business analysts or product owners on how to actually look at it. And you can do it when you're writing code as well. And with all your automated checks, like I found it really important that we got it into the CI. And all throughout the development cycle, but only if you know how. So, teach your teams about security, because security is for everyone. It's not just for the few. Thank you. Any questions?
Hello, sorry, Gwen, could you please tell why you spent a large part of your presentation about how to involve people to training, but for example, for our company, it just was mandatory trainings with deadlines, and everyone should pass it. So some people left at night to pass it before deadline. And we didn't have problem with involving people. It just was mandatory training. So why you didn't go that way in Sky Company?
So
Thanks.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you repeat it? I'm really sorry. I can't hear you very well.
In our company, we just do those security trainings mandatory.
Yeah.
So we didn't have problem to involve people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not all companies are the same, and my company knew nothing about security, and no one was interested. People didn't know how to get interested. So it wasn't something that was taught. It was something that I identified people needed to know. And once you solve one thing, there's always something else underneath. So it might not be security that's a problem in your company. It might be accessibility. And it's a guide on how to like get stuff involved at your company. So, and you know, you don't have to be an expert in it to teach it either. And you can change the way that the company thinks about things.
Okay, thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
Not related to security, probably about company organization, but you mentioned tribes. What are they?
I mentioned
Tribes.
tribes. Oh, so sorry. Tribes are like Spotify model stuff. So in the UK, lots of people were obsessed with the Spotify model. So tribe is, we call them collectives where I am. It's basically a department. Yeah. But if you're in, like, Spotify have a whole big thing on how to do it. It's really interesting, although it's not a one size fits all like people try and do.
So, hi, you've mentioned you've integrated OWASP Z-Attack proxy into the CI. Any
Yeah.
challenges that you've met on the road?
Yes. So the challenge is that I left the company and they still haven't done it. So I set them up with all of this kind of stuff, but it didn't have the same momentum. So they still meet up, but it's not where I'd want it to be. So I met up with one of the principal engineers a while ago who said he was going to take care of it. And I was like, do you have it integrated? And he's like, oh no, we're focusing on something else now. I'm like, what are you focusing on? And fuck you. Yeah. Sorry.
Hey, Gwen. So with the Z-Attack proxy implementing that, were you running it manually first to just get that sort of health check, and did you do a sort of health check of the tests? Sorry, I know you want to reply, but did you do a health check of the tests and extend them regularly?
Yes, so what we were doing is we were running against the juice shop, and with that, because it spews out so many logs, and it was really important for people to be able to read these logs, otherwise you were going to get a hell of a lot of noise. So that's where the security experts really came in. So because the logs can be a bit obtuse sometimes maybe, but Paul could be like, okay, so this log means this, and then I can't remember the graduate's name, but he'd figured out how to like ignore stuff, so we'd be able to actually get it down to a certain point at some point. Yeah.
I think now it's time to try question assurance. Okay. About Monzo. How old Monzo is? 2 years, 3?
It's 4 years old.
4 years already.
Yeah,
okay.
so it's just turned 4 years. Yeah, so I find it really interesting because it started as a prepaid card, and the quality problem that we have there is we've hired really amazingly smart people, but they're quite young, and so they haven't seen what happens when you don't have fast feedback loops and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's my new thing to like teach people about feedback loops. Yeah.
Okay, and as much I know, your technology is running on Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Okay. last year, KubeCon, I think somebody from your company gave a presentation how you screwed up some production.
Oliver Beatty, yeah.
Yeah, so could you give us some nice examples how you or your company have screwed up security?
So, security at Monzo is really interesting, I find, because we've got like the fin crime department, which like is the biggest thing in security for banks, and we've got developers working on it and stuff like that. So, when we've screwed up security, I can't think of a time that we have, but I've only been there 3 months. Yeah, but we've got quite a few experts in there working on it, which is quite cool because, yeah, it's nice being able to actually talk to security experts and stuff.
Thank you.
Right.
So have you had time to... Oh, yes, thank you.
Could you share any ideas about security awareness? How else you can raise it within a company? For example, we've tried something like making the REST security cheat sheet of us as part of the requirements. Maybe you have other ideas how to,
Yeah, there's evil user stories that people talk about, which use the personas, like to say, like, I'm a spy and I want to get this information out of the application so that I can destroy everything, kind of thing. And so you can write around that to try and protect that. That's one way. Yeah, I think that's probably like, if you're doing it at that level, I think that's probably a good way to look at it.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yes, it seems so, but okay, let's finish then now. You get a little bit longer break. And I know that somebody gets present.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have time to ask question from you. What are those 2 things I asked you to remember? Identify. Please give feedback. Yeah. Yes, this was the first thing. And the second thing is the name tag. Please ensure that your name tag is name out. And if you see anybody who actually has turned it... Just write your name on those ones. Exactly. No. It's actually not so interesting that if you go to somebody and please let me to turn your name tag. This is intentionally. Personal space. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Maybe you want to come here and have a short speech to the audience.
Do that.
Sure. Nice, actually. First time in the history. Kristjan Uba on the floor.
Hello. Hi. Didn't expect to see so many lovely people here. What am I talking about? It's Kristjan Uba. I was just introduced. You should listen to what the organizers are saying. Is there any topic anybody's interested in? No? Testing. Okay, well, we'll run very quickly. Math question. How many corners are left after you got off one corner from a rectangular board? 5. Good. I can live with 5. Any other answers than 5? Six. Okay. 6 is good. Anything else? As many as you want. I like that one. Explained a little bit later. Can we get any other number? Somebody said 10. Sure. How do you get more than 6 or 10? How can you get any other number? So 41. How good you get that? No, you can cut only one corner. Depends how I cut. So how would you cut to get 41 corners? Not in a straight line. So you just create more corners by cutting. Yeah, done. You can do any number of corners you want, right? Can you get lower number of corners? Can you get 2 by cutting off one corner from a rectangular board? Somebody said yes. Hands up, I can't see. How? So you have 3 left. No, you can't. Then you're cutting off the 2 corners. Ooh, that's a good idea. How often can you fold a solid wood block, for example? With enough power, you can do everything. Any other ways of getting 2? But then you're cutting off more than one corner. I can give a reason. A Dutch tester gave a very good answer. Let's say we have a rectangular board here, right? We got off that top corner, slice it right off. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 corners, right? We have 2 corners on the left. As the question was, how many corners are left after you cut off 1 corner? So we have 2 that we started out with, which is a very clear indication of a good tester who interprets the specification however they wish to make the product owner really happy or unhappy, or the developers really happy. The other way of doing it is discussing what is a corner. Some of you have been talking to me about it, and they've said, well, corner is a 90-degree angle. Mathematically, that's what we start off with because it's a rectangle. That means the corners are 90 degrees. If you have a table at your work desk or at a conference room, wherever, that is rectangular, this one is curved, so it doesn't really work, but it has 4 corners, right? Well, it actually has 8 because it's 3D and here's the other sides as well. But all those corners are actually rounded, so you wouldn't cut yourself when you're touching them. So do they actually have any corners, or are they rounds? So you don't really know. So in terms of this question, you can always argue, what is a corner? So as a product, as a specification, you're not actually sure. You don't know unless you go to a stakeholder and ask, what is a corner for you? Because as a developer and a tester, you have no idea. Or you could say, okay, for the purpose of this exercise, because we start off with rectangular corners, so only the original ones are what we call corners. Good. I was finishing in 1 minute. So whatever cutting you do, you end up with whatever number of corners you want, because original ones you have 4, you got off just 1, you left 3. If you got diagonally, you're breaking the original ones that you had, so you end up with 1 on the left and 1 on the other. So any number of corners from 1 to infinity is the correct answer to this question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And actually, this was advertisement. This evening, we are going to have lightning talks. Thank you, Christian. This was really good advertisement, and enjoy this evening also other lightning talks. So, but now you have 5 minutes break.